In 1988, if you had walked into a court-ordered liquidation auction in Los Angeles and bought every single piece of this company, its inventory, its machinery, its brand name, even its office chairs, it would have cost you less than a second-hand sedan. They were completely bankrupt. Liquidating. Dead in the water. Fast forward to today, and that exact same corporate entity is worth over $55 billion. Over the last 30 years, it didn't just beat the stock market, it outperformed Apple, Amazon, and Warren Buffett. It became one of the single greatest wealth creation engines in modern financial history. And here is the most insane part: they didn't build this empire by inventing a miraculous lab formula. They did it because two corporate lawyers bought a dead fruit juice brand, slapped a green claw mark on an oversized can, and exploited a massive federal loophole that government regulators missed for nearly 2 decades. This is the complete, untold story of how a broke Los Angeles juice brand became Monster Energy, and how it survived deaths, federal lawsuits, dirty corporate espionage, and a war with Coca-Cola to dominate global pop. To understand how Monster happened, you have to look at the wreckage they built it on. In 1935, during the heart of the Great Depression, a man named Hubert Hansen starts a small juice business in Southern California. His hook: selling fresh, unpasteurized fruit juice to local retailers and directly to Hollywood film crews working long hours under hot studio lights. For decades, it works. It's a quiet, honest, family-run business. For over 50 years, Hansen's juice survived the Depression, World War II, and decades of economic shifts. But by the 1980s, Hubert's grandson was running the company under the name Hansen Foods. They tried to expand too fast into sodas and non-carbonated drinks without the supply chain to back it up. Bad management, rising debt, and aggressive legacy competitors crushed them. By 1988, Hansen Foods filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They lost their factories, laid off almost all their workers, and were essentially reduced to a corporate shell. Which brings us to two men who knew absolutely nothing about the beverage business. Rodney Sachs was a high-powered corporate lawyer from Johannesburg, South Africa. He'd spent his life reviewing merger contracts and corporate structures, not beverage formulas. In 1989, seeking new opportunities, Sachs immigrated to California and partnered with Hilton Schlossberg, a seasoned British businessman who had also built his career in South Africa. For 3 years, they hunted for a broken business with brand equity, something they could buy cheap and re-engineer. In 1992, an investment banker dropped a file on their desk. Hansen's. It was generating just $17 million in falling annual sales, held together by a dozen employees. But Sachs and Schlossberg saw something nobody else did. They bought it for $14.5 million. They didn't buy it for the juice, they bought the license to transform it. Through the mid-1990s, Sachs and Schlossberg tried normal things. They launched natural sodas and iced teas under the Hansen name, moving operations to Corona, California in 1998 to cut costs. But then, they noticed a shift in beverage culture. An Austrian entrepreneur named Dietrich Mateschitz had taken a Thai tonic drink, tweaked the formula, and launched Red Bull in Europe. By the late 90s, Red Bull was creeping into American nightclubs and college towns. Red Bull created the market, but Rodney Sachs saw a massive flaw in Red Bull's strategy. Red Bull sold an 8.4-ounce tiny silver can for around $2. To American consumers used to giant big gulps and 20-ounce sodas, an 8.4-ounce drink felt like an overpriced medical shot. Sachs and Schlossberg made a gamble that changed beverage history. They decided to launch a drink in a 16-ounce black can nearly double the size of Red Bull and sell it for the exact same price, $1.99. They skipped the pastel colors and wellness messaging. They made it look aggressive. A black can with 3 neon green claw marks ripped across the front, making it look like an animal had mauled the metal. In April 2002, Monster Energy hit gas stations and convenience stores across the United States. Double the drink, double the caffeine, same price. Big beverage companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola spend billions on Super Bowl ads, primetime television spots, and clean-cut Hollywood celebrities. Monster took a radically different path. They ignored mainstream television completely. Instead, Monster took their marketing budget straight to the grassroots. They went to skate parks, dirt tracks, underground metal festivals, and gaming tournaments. They didn't hire actors to pretend to like the drink. They sponsored real athletes, motocross riders, BMX bikers, UFC fighters, drift drivers, and let them represent the brand authentically. They handed out free ice-cold cans from lifted black pickup trucks at extreme sports events. Monster wasn't marketed as a soft drink, it was sold as a badge of identity for counterculture rebels, blue-collar workers, shift laborers, and night owl gamers. And quietly, behind the scenes, Monster made a crucial legal decision. They classified Monster not as a traditional beverage, but as a dietary supplement. Under FDA rules at the time, standard soda beverages were legally capped on how much caffeine they could contain per ounce. Dietary supplements, however, had no caffeine ceiling and didn't even require listing the exact caffeine amount on the back of the label. It was a legal gray zone, and it allowed Monster to pack their cans with massive caffeine hits, taurine, and B vitamins, pushing performance past any standard soda on the market. By 2011, Monster was printing hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. But growing at breakneck speed came with catastrophic risks. In December 2011, a 14-year-old girl in Maryland tragically passed away from cardiac arrhythmia after drinking two 24-ounce Monster Energy cans within 24 hours, a total of nearly 480 milligrams of caffeine. Her family filed a landmark wrongful death suit against the company. Shortly after, federal reports revealed the FDA had received multiple adverse event reports linking Monster drinks to severe cardiac events and emergency room visits. San Francisco's city attorney filed a massive lawsuit accusing Monster of intentionally marketing dangerous caffeine levels to teenagers and children. When news broke, Wall Street panicked. Monster's stock plummeted over 25% in a single trading session, wiping out billions in market value. Monster fought back aggressively in court. They argued that their drinks were completely safe when consumed as directed, pointing out that an 8-ounce serving of Monster actually contained less caffeine than a medium coffeehouse coffee. However, to mitigate the regulatory firestorm, Monster made a historic shift in 2013. They dropped the dietary supplement label and reclassified Monster as a standard food beverage. They added clear caffeine disclosure numbers and explicit warning labels stating the drinks were not recommended for children or pregnant women. The lawsuits kept coming for years, but the consumer demand never stopped. Rather than destroying Monster, the federal scrutiny proved the company's insane brand loyalty. In 2014, Coca-Cola realized they couldn't beat Monster with their own energy drink attempts like Coke Energy. So, Coke decided to join them. Coca-Cola bought a 16.7% stake in Monster Beverage Corporation for $2.1 billion in cash. As part of the historic deal, Coke transferred all its energy drink brands, like NOS and Full Throttle, to Monster, while Monster transferred its non-energy juice and soda lines back to Coke. Most importantly, Monster was given access to Coca-Cola's legendary global distribution network. Overnight, Monster cans were loaded onto Coke trucks worldwide. In the late 2010s, a new challenger called Bang Energy exploded on social media, claiming its super creatine formula was superior. Bang rapidly took market share in gyms and on TikTok. Monster didn't just compete on store shelves, they went to federal war. Monster sued Bang Energy for false advertising, proving in court that Bang's super creatine didn't actually contain functional creatine at all. In 2022, a federal jury awarded Monster a staggering $293 million verdict against Bang. The judgment forced Bang Energy into bankruptcy. In 2023, Monster stepped in and bought Bang's assets out of bankruptcy court at a massive discount, folding their fiercest rival into their own corporate portfolio. Today, Monster Beverage Corporation generates over $7 billion in annual revenue, sold in over 150 countries. In 2025, after more than 3 decades at the helm, Rodney Sacks stepped down as co-CEO, leaving Hilton Schlossberg as sole CEO. 2 outsiders from South Africa took a bankrupt $14 million fruit juice company and turned it into a $55 billion giant, built on bold sizing, grassroots marketing, and relentless corporate grit.